Hey folks, Malforian here. Welcome back to another Dev Diary discussion. This week is Dev Diary 98, the last one basically before the DLC comes out. There will be one next week, but they haven't said what it's going to be. And with it being the day of the launch, I can't imagine it's going to be anything too crazy, but who knows? This is called the Castles Foundation, and it's all about the free content you'll get even if you don't buy Fate of Iberia. So if you don't buy the DLC, Paradox always release a free content patch basically on the same day, which is pretty cool of them. You know, it's good to support the game buying the DLC, but not everyone has the money to do that. So they do release additional updates just for everyone else who bought the base game, which, like I say, is pretty awesome. You don't feel like you have to buy the DLC. And yeah, just a little bit about what's going to be in that free patch, and then at the very end there's also the achievements for the patch as well. So we'll go through those. So with that being said, let's just get down to what's in here. So they're going to start here with clan contracts. So since Iberia in 867 has several clan realms with which play big parts in the region, we wanted to add some new options for clan contracts. And there's, 4 new ones here. They look pretty interesting as well. So, marriage favor, the goal is to get benefits in exchange for a promise. Not fulfilling it will have consequences, though. So, I don't think it says exactly what this is. Oh, no, it does. The screenshot actually shows you. The liege commits to marry their close family to see an alliance before marrying them to anyone else. Oh, okay. So, you basically say, I'll definitely marry one of my children to your house in the future, and they'll give you some rewards for that. If you don't do it, I imagine they get maybe a strong hook on you, and then they can force you to do it. It doesn't exactly say, but I would imagine that'd be a cool like trade-off then. So you'd want to give it to them, but then if you don't do it, they can basically just force you to do it anyway. So maybe that's how that's going to work. The Ghazi. Encourage your vassals to engage in holy wars, but give less levies from them. This would be cool. When I was reading this one, I thought this would make a pretty interesting playthrough. You could play tall in your own kingdom, and then just empower your vassals with this clan contract, and just see how far they'd wage holy wars on the map. So maybe if you were at the very top of Iberia, and then your vassals would push into France and just keep going. It'd be interesting to know how much of a modifier it gives for giving holy wars. Like, does it just make them more likely to do a holy war? I'm not sure how it works, obviously, without the data behind it, but it'd be kind of interesting to see how that works out and what actually change it makes. And the Ikta, less tax and levies, but better synergy for men-at-arms for both parties. So it looks like you get less money and soldiers, but your men-at-arms are better. So I guess, especially late game, that would be really good, actually, because late game, it's more, your men-at-arms become better and better. Well, not better, you get more and more men-at-arms the later you get in the game, generally. So that'd be a good one for late game, I would think. Although, actually, I suppose early game, if you're making enough money, then your men-at-arms would be probably ridiculously good, because a lot of realms, obviously, are predominantly levies early in the game. So I guess it kind of works both ways. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below where you think in the time frame that would work best. And then the jizya. Again, probably definitely how you say that. Unlocked by the tenet of the same name, this is a specific contract for people of a different faith, increasing their tax but lowering their levies, which is a cool kind of historical one. I'll give you money, but my Christian soldiers aren't going to fight in your clan wars, basically. So pretty cool way to have non-Islamic faith people as your vassals, but a bit more like historical context that, their soldiers are probably less likely to fight on behalf of you, but they'll give you more money to compensate for that in the long run. And then obviously just that screenshot we looked at earlier. And then, this is where it gets a little bit spicy. The Disillusion faction. This is a new faction type, and it sounds pretty crazy, to be honest. To model some of the biggest historical shakeups in Iberia, we've introduced a new faction type. The Disillusion faction will aim to destroy the primary title of the top liege of the realm, as well as any other same-tier titles. This makes all vassals independent, shattering a kingdom or empire. In Flavor Pack 2, Fate of Iberia, this means that the Umayyads can collapse as they did in history, but also means that any large realms would decline, will face this challenge. So that's pretty cool. I know when I've been doing the live streams of Crusader Kings, I always get comments on there about how the Umayyads don't really collapse as they historically did, but it looks like this might trigger that to do so, which is pretty cool. Anything detracting from a realm's unity will increase the risk of a dissolution faction forming. This means short reigns, low cultural acceptance, war losses, or unallied vassals will be dangerous to king and emperor tier rulers. Realms where the vassals either like their heir or can elect their own are less likely to face a dissolution faction, and if a vassal can make a claim for the title themselves, they'll do that instead. So you basically get this war, and if you win it, it basically say if it was the HRE, you could basically defeat the emperor and then it would just shatter the HRE into the different duchies or kingdoms that were part of it, and they'd all become independent. So it's kind of cool, this. I think it is interesting. There's a mod that kind of does this as well at the moment. So it is how historically some of these realms did deteriorate, but there's gonna have to be some controls on this. I can imagine, I do AI onlys on the channel, and I can only imagine if this isn't balanced properly, just the whole world just like poof, 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 just random kingdoms and empires just going. It would make it a fun campaign, I suppose, but they're really going to have to control this because otherwise it's going to just, the border gore is going to get insane. They do say in here that obviously there are some holdbacks for it. You know, the realm, if they can vote, so for the HRE, they'd probably just vote for somebody else instead. And if they can make a claim, they push their own claim instead of disiluding the whole empire. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. This could be fun, but it could also be a mess, depending on how it's balanced, I think, because it could really get crazy if it isn't balanced properly. Well, I think so anyway. Anyway, map update is the next bit. To go along with the theme of the flavor pack, we've updated the map of Iberia. They mentioned this, I think, like 2 weeks ago. The map changes are fairly small in scope this time round, and we'll focus on updating the northern Iberia, more specifically the Kingdom of Aragon. In order to improve the overall accuracy, we've added a few new counties such as Rosello and Palars for a better depiction of the area. Existing baronies have been moved around and new ones added. So yeah, they've just added some new places basically in the north, a couple more counties and things like that. Nothing too crazy. In addition to the county setup, the terrain type of some provinces has also changed. Okay, so changed some more mountains, hills, and all that kind of stuff as well. In addition to changes in Aragon, we've added cultural naming variations for many Berber and Arabic cultures to many tiles across Iberia. Oh, that's cool. I do like that when that happens. When you take somewhere over and then it gets renamed into a more cultural version of the realm that you took it over as. So we'll get Berber and Arabic names instead of like the Catholic names, basically, for some of these places. I would think by the sounds of that. The shared head of faith. Again, this is something they mentioned, I think, in one of the early dev diaries for the DLC. Head of faiths can now be characters of different faiths. This is done through script rather than manually in-game. This means Insular Christians, Conversos, and Mazarabs. The Pope will be their head of faith, even though they are of different faiths. So this is just some of the Catholic, some of the Christian faiths are share the Pope because they're so close to Catholicism. They still see the Pope as their like ruler. Historical faiths can be emulated by using the right tenant, providing you don't meet certain red lines for your old head of faith. At the cost of a tenant slot, you can keep your old head of faith whilst converting. So this is saying you can reform your faith, or you can make a new Christian faith, and as long as you don't do anything too crazy with its setup, the Pope will take over as your head of faith on your new version of Christianity, basically. Unless, like I say, it's something crazy. I guess if you allow deviancy or male adultery or something, he'll be like, no, I don't want any part of this. You go do your own stuff. I'm going to crusade you in 50 years. But yeah, so you can move him over if you wish to, or if you don't want to. I guess you can get money out of him and things like that still, so it's kind of worth it. And this is obviously the right tenant, and this is the faith there. The new one they've entered for the DLC, Mazarabic. In Iberia, which wasn't there before. Islam now has a bespoke system for choosing the correct caliph. Those Shias are still fairly split between several caliphates and imamates. The mainline Sunnis will now share the Sunni caliph as the head of faith. Muslims who share the head of faith view each other as righteous. Influential members of the Islamic faith whose head of faith don't share their faith can attempt to appoint a righteous caliph, claiming or creating the caliphate for themselves and splintering. Oh, that's pretty cool to come as just part of a free content update. You can basically go to war to place your own person as head of faith for the caliphate, which is pretty cool. You can't do that as Christians with the Pope. That would be interesting if you could do that. If you're you know, France, and you look at the Pope and he's a deviant and he's basically evil, you could go to war to basically replace him as Pope, which I think they did historically a few times. So yeah, it looks like you can do that now as the non-caliphate members. So once splintered, a faith cannot be brought back into the fold. So basically saying if you splinter off from the main Islamic faith, you can't then kind of come back to it as your splinter religion. So new temporal Sunni and Shia faiths cannot appoint themselves as caliphs immediately if there is a caliph available, either the Orthodox version or their prior faith's caliph. Instead, they must show submission to an existing caliph from whom they derive their authority, even in rebellion, and then follow the path to appoint a righteous caliph themselves. Characters intended to do this all along can get a little boost on the path, so something cool will happen to allow you to try and do that. And then history changes and friends. Again, some interesting changes here. Visigothic is Visigone. Always like a good title like that. Basically, this is just saying that the Visigoths are gone from the game. They've removed Visigothic from 867, starting Iberia off pre-split between 1066 cultures, save for Aragonese, which now emerges as part of the creation of the Kingdom of Aragon. So yeah, they're just saying about why they've removed it. It didn't really make sense. They kind of copied it over from CK2's Charlemagne DLC, and then never really changed it. And they thought this patch was a good reason to kind of rebalance how Iberia looks. So, as I say, it was just bad history. Having the Visigoths there, it just didn't make sense. So this is the new, I think, 867. Yeah, this is new 867 start for culture. So you've got Galician, Asturianese, Castilian, Basque, Catalan, and Andalusian are the cultures now in Spain. Fresh faces and further foes, all the Fs. Further on from this, we've updated, added, and occasionally removed hundreds and hundreds of characters all across Iberia, adjusting relations, lifespans, traits, and dynasties. So big changes. This will add a bit of life to both major bookmark dates, but most importantly, it'll add a bit of colour for those who enjoy spelunking. Good use of spelunking there. The history databases, and checking to see if titles in-game have the migration period rulers properly associated. So this is where you can like look at a title history, and you can... The game is really cool for this. You can actually look back into history and see all the known kings and when they ruled and things like that in the game. If you've never done it, it's pretty interesting to look through, you know, like the Byzantines. Even if you start in 867, you can look at the historical rulers of the Byzantines all the way back to, was it Justinian, the first one? Probably somebody will correct me in the comments, but I think Justinian was the first emperor in the Eastern Roman Empire / Byzantines. And you can see all the history of the previous ones. So just saying they're going to update a bunch of that as they're doing a lot of Iberian-focused things. For folks who like actual gameplay more than interactive reading, we've added the Mozarabic strand of Christianity, Arabanized Catholics who carry on the strongly independent traditions of pre-Islamic Iberia, but view the Pope as their head of faith, with the aid of the right tenants. Squeezed between the Catholic North and Islamic South, the Mozarabs struggle to preserve their way of life, and since you see a lot more of them in 867 than 1066, you can probably guess how it's going for them. In other words, badly. Let's go badly for them. Very, very badly. It's not all doom and gloom for Iberia's new miners, though, because on the subject of those larger realms, we've also split them up a tad. Asturias has lost Puchcal, which they actually only in the process of trying to snatch, whilst Andalusia has been given a reality check. Both Puchcal and Toledo, whilst paying nominal homage to Cordoba, were functionally independent, with Toledo in particular resisting repeated military expeditions and attempts at taxation. So yeah, they've actually changed the map. Toledo and things are a bit more independent. So yeah, it's going to play out a little bit differently, I think, in Iberia. Obviously, even with the struggle mechanic, I think, even if you took out the struggle mechanic, it would have played out differently with the changes they made. Andalusia is in the process of trying to subjugate Toledo more firmly in 867, with Portugal also being on the books. So we represent this as a brace of wars on start. So yeah, as soon as you start the game, these wars are always happening. These two, this one for Asturias and this one for Andalusia, going to war with Toledo immediately as soon as the game starts. Andalusia is trying to quell its powerful border districts of Toledo and Portugal, keeping them in the realm, whilst Asturias tries to snatch Portugal mid-rebellion. So yeah, they're basically off to some battles as soon as you start. Finally, Asturias has been tweaked, losing its starting title Law of Feudal Elective. The current king's father decisively abolished the notion of nobility, electing their kings in the short term, and his son carried that on. So they start sans title law now. In addition to this, Castile also starts with de jure territory in 867, making it creatable in the earlier bookmark. If Castile actually is created for any reason, Asturias is reduced to Leon. If Asturias is able to de jure drift Castile into itself before Castile is created, then the union is preserved and Asturias earns its right to perpetually exist in 867. Oh, that's nice. So you can actually... there's a few different ways Castile, Asturias, and places up here can play out depending on what happens with the titles. And then that's it for the free patch stuff. Well, that's most of it. There'll be I imagine there'll be the patch notes next week. There's always a bunch of smaller changes and things like that, but that's kind of the big free stuff that you're getting. And then we're on to achievements. Last but not least, the achievements. So this is the little little Twitter vote they did last week, and it looks like it just won out that they would show them. So yeah, we're going to go through these quickly, and then we're going to be done for today. And yeah, the easy ones: history's best friend. Sleep with your best friend whilst having a ritualized friendship. Cultural tradition. I have no idea what that means, so we'll see when it comes out. The ritualized friendship cultural tradition. We'll have to look into that. I'm not sure what that gives. Bask in my glory. Embrace the Uskal Elosia faith during the Iberian struggle. That must be a decision. I wonder which one that is. I don't think that got shown off in previous dev diaries. It looks like there's a different faith that can spawn during the Iberian struggle. Interesting. Friendship is magic. Use a friendship hook on a different faith ruler involved in the Iberian struggle. So that'd be, if you're playing on the Arab side, you would try, I guess, use a friendship hook on the Pope and get that achievement. I guess that is pretty easy because you just gotta keep trying and eventually it will work. Medium high stake. Bet a title on a strategy game match against another ruler and complete the match. This is where you can have a chess game basically against somebody else, and you can bet your actual counties on it, which is pretty crazy. I don't know how long that event plays out for, but we'll be doing that for sure next week. Iberia or Iberia. As an Iberian character, control all of the Caucasian Iberia region. May not be available for characters in Ruler Designer. That's obviously to stop you just making an Iberian character there and just doing it that way, I guess. Where you've got to move from Iberia and Spain to the Caucasian Iberia region, so just basically move your realm over there and control it all. Iberian hostilities. End the Iberian struggle through means of force, and then through conciliation and through compromise. So 3 different ways it can play out. Hard. The Andalusian Inquisition convert all of Iberia to Mozarabism. So that's the new faith. You've got to convert all of it to that faith. So I imagine that is quite hard, especially in 867, I would have thought. But yeah, because you'd have to be that faith and then push everyone else out and convert everyone to it. Holidaying in Iberia. Start as an uninvolved character, become involved, and end the Iberian struggle. This is a Heistine hack if I've ever seen an achievement. You'd probably just use him, because he'll be uninvolved, obviously, but he has a bunch of troops. Take some land through a Varangian adventure, and then just get involved and end the Iberian struggle. So get there, take some land, take a duchy, and then just, you know, play through the events to try finish the Iberian struggle. Be a cool playthrough, but I imagine that's who most people use to get that one done. And then very hard, Legacy of the Campadores. Create and rule Valencia as an heir to El Cid. Interesting. An heir to El Cid. I thought El Cid started unlanded, so I don't know if he has any heirs at the beginning of the game. I wonder how you would do that. I can see why it's very hard. You've got to create and rule Valencia as well. I imagine there must be a decision to make that one, maybe. Or is it a kingdom already? Without looking into the game, I'm not sure off the top of my head. But as an heir to El Cid, because I thought he was in the game but he's unlanded and he didn't have any children. Would you have to be a female ruler and matrilineally marry El Cid? I'm not sure how this would work. Someone in the comments, as always, will let me know. But yeah, because you can't play as him to begin with because he's unlanded. So but it's got to be an heir to him, unless it counts non. You know, if you just marry him normally as a female ruler, would your children count? Anyway, we'll find out. I'm sure someone will make a guide for it immediately after it comes out. But that one's an interesting one, and it does sound pretty difficult, to be honest. To be honest, the hard ones sound pretty difficult as well, apart from the holidaying in Iberia. Although I suppose, yeah, that one is quite hard, because I guess you've still got to end the Iberian struggle yourself. I guess another character could beat you to ending it. So anyway, that is the end of the dev diary. And that is the achievements that are coming. Let me know which ones you're going to go for, which ones you think will be interesting to play through. But yeah, as always, guys, if you've enjoyed this, hit the like button. It helps other people find the channel. I cover the dev diaries every time they come out on Crusader Kings. And if you're new to the channel, this is your first video. If you subscribe, I cover Crusader Kings. I do live streams, story campaigns and things like that in the game. And then I also cover other grand strategy games on the channel as well. So if you would follow me, that would be amazing. I will be live streaming on the release of this DLC, actually. So next Tuesday, I'll be back live streaming for a bit of an extended time on the Tuesday. So if you want to drop by, if you subscribe to the channel, you can get notifications for that and come and join the fun as we learn all the new mechanics. But we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you in the next one.